Welcome to the Free Birth Podcast, a supportive space for people who are learning, exploring, and celebrating their autonomous choices in childbirth. Together, we'll unpack truths, share personal stories, and claim our ability to birth freely and intuitively. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
There are many ways to interact with Free Birth Society. These include our incredible offering, The Complete Guide to Free Birth, which is the most comprehensive online course available on how to give birth in your power. We also have a beautiful free birth meditation program called the Sovereign Birth Meditation Series, designed to help you release your fears and actualize your dream birth. Our latest course is called Through the Veil, a profoundly personal, radical pregnancy companion program by Yolanda Norris Clark that offers the opportunity to travel with Yolanda as she moves through the last trimester of her most recent pregnancy and invites you into her birth room to witness the birth of her 8th child. And if you're looking for a deeper connection and the opportunity for sisterhood in community with radical, like-minded women, the Free Birth Society private membership is for you, and you can apply on our website to become a member. We also offer personalized one-on-one transformational coaching with a focus on learning the tools to move out of victim consciousness and towards self-responsibility. Skills that translate to freedom, not only in the context of birth and mothering, but in every area of life. And finally, we are offering all of you, our amazing listeners, the free gift of Yolanda's 20-minute birth affirmations audio recording, a gorgeous, soothing meditation that every pregnant mother should have. So just head on over to our website at freebirthsociety.com, sign up, and Yolanda's affirmations will be sent directly to your inbox.
Hello, it's Yolanda here, and I'm so excited to tell you about my latest endeavor with Free Birth Society. It's called Through the Veil, and it's an invitation for you to join me on the most profoundly intimate experience of my life and yours. The journey of moving through the birth process into the underworld of birth to be reborn as a new mother into a new family once again. Through the Veil is a very raw, very real third trimester, birth, and postpartum week-by-week program that includes 17 videos in which I discuss exactly how I prepare for my free birth, including so many of the messy, emotional, logistical, and relational issues that aren't often talked about in the conventional prenatal context. Through the Veil also includes the hour-plus long documentary of my 8th baby's birth, an incredibly loving, incredibly vulnerable, gritty, agonizing, naked, and beautiful family birth that I'm so proud of. I really look forward to you journeying with me through the veil.
I am so stoked to be bringing you today the story of an incredible woman, Shylah Ray. Shylah freebirthed her child in an off-the-grid yurt on Christmas by candlelight in Southern California. She was also a radical birth keeper for many years, serving women outside the system. She's also my new favorite musician, so be sure to listen to the end where we share my personal favorite song of hers. Enjoy. Let's begin. Take me to wherever you want to start with that marker, with that question of when I ask you where your motherhood journey begins, what's the first part of your life that comes into view?
That I was raised around children my whole life. My mother owned a daycare and I was just always around babies and, it was a very different way that my mom was raising these kids than I think I had envisioned for myself. But it was great that I had the experience, of being around so many different kids, and never imagined I'd become a mother so young at 20.
Oh.
I think around 18, 19, I was like, oh, I'll have kids maybe when I'm 33 or something, and then, and then I found myself pregnant at 20, 3 weeks after meeting this man, and was very in love, but also very naive. So I, immediately when I got pregnant, I obviously, I had to choose. I had to make a choice of if I wanted to keep this baby or not. And I think something in me I felt capable. I felt strength. I felt completely capable of being a mother. I had no idea what it looked like to give birth. I didn't know what my body looked like giving birth. So that, I wasn't quite there yet, but I just knowing and carrying from my childhood this experience of like babysitting so much and helping with all these children. I think I felt a confidence of like, I think I would know how to do this.
Yeah.
Obviously my mind had opened a lot over the years, and I was living a pretty like holistic lifestyle at that point, and I had a very different image in my mind of how I wanted to raise kids. So I definitely was considering, a more conscious approach, such as a birth out of the hospital, such as breastfeeding, because I was not breastfed as a child. So I went into it without knowing too much, but so willing and eager to learn. And I felt that was going to be a huge part of my path. Otherwise, why would I have chosen it? Right. At 20, I could have said, no, thank you, I'm not ready. But a part of me was so ready and like kind of hungry for like a new direction. So,
and you had already heard about things like home birth.
Well, here's where this happened for me, is that when I was traveling in British Columbia, in Canada, because I'm originally from Ontario, I'd hitchhiked out there. I lived on this piece of land where there was a woman who had given birth to her child, just her, the baby, and one other woman who I don't even know was a qualified midwife. So when I heard that she just gave birth to the baby in the bathtub, like in winter, I was kind of like, wow, you can do that,
right? Totally.
18, going on 19. And I was just like, and that was my first time actually seeing a toddler being breastfed also. And I was like, wow, you can breastfeed a baby that big? It blew my mind.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
I've never seen this in my life, even though I had been traveling, was going to all these different hippie gatherings and whatnot. It was like, this was just such a mystery to me. So that opened my mind a lot. And then when I saw these images too of like the birthing in the bathtub and looking at the toddler, it was like, wow, I think that's something I could do. Like I started to consider this, like, this looks really healthy and whole and natural. Like something in me like just awoke to that and was like, I think I need to have this kind of experience to make my experience like really full in this life, like I didn't want to settle for just a mediocre.
Yeah, girl. Nice. I love hearing that.
I was living a pretty wild,
right,
static lifestyle. I was like,
right. You were already like questioning the norms, and this was just an extension of that.
Of course, living outside the box already. So what happened is that when I met my partner, and it wasn't very long, like I said, before we got pregnant, he informed me that he had two best friends that were down in Costa Rica who had just given birth to a baby down there, and the term unassisted wasn't really being used all that much then. It was just like, he said they just had the baby at home with nobody else there that was qualified. And I thought, wow, I want to talk to her about this. And so we connected. She came back to California from Costa Rica. I guess they split up. She came back. This woman was 17 years old, this tiny, tiny woman, raw foodist, just the sweetest, most beautiful girl. And and there were these photos, and she's pushing out this gigantic blue baby in the jungle, and she's pulling on a rope, and she's just like so in it. And I thought, wow, this is really raw. And like, if this woman can push out a baby without any help or support, I absolutely can. So we bonded, and she was so supportive. She was probably my biggest and only real support in this pregnancy, because I was new to California. I just moved there on a whim. So,
wait, so your mom wasn't in California?
No. My parents have been in Canada. They're still there. My entire family's there.
Gotcha.
I've been on my own since 18. So yeah, we developed a sisterhood really quickly. She kind of coached me through the pregnancy, was encouraging me to have a free birth, have an unassisted birth, and was like, "You totally got this. I'll support you." I had a little bit of fear going into it. Something in the back of my mind was telling me that I was not 100% prepared.
Hmm.
I listened to this voice, and in about 5.5, 6 months pregnant, I I was referred to a woman in Los Angeles that was a midwife, and so we spoke. We had a consultation. They loved us, and they were willing to work with us despite how far along I was. I was maybe even 7 months actually. I just remember I was planning to kind of do it unassisted. And every time you tell people that, they're like,
Of course.
they're so worried. They just can't believe it. They're just like, "You want your baby to die?" I'm
Oh,
like, "Okay."
so rude.
So I just kind of shrugged a lot of it off. But over time, I was like, you know what? I could be a little bit more educated. I could do more research. I feel like I need a bit more experience. And something in me just told me to have a midwife. I am so grateful I had her because of how much I learned about being a midwife. Okay.
Mm.
This woman helped train me later. And that's what ties in my two birth stories. Decided to work with me.
She's cool.
Yeah, and then I had my friend, who was like my best friend, my doula, and then I had their assistant, and then there was another woman who was being like my doula. So this is 6 people now.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
we live in a tiny space. Okay. So here I am thinking about where are we going to place the birthing tub?
Yeah.
How is this going to happen? I'm talking tiny space. It was in the meditation room in the basement of a pyramid house that was formerly a Krishna temple in the 80s. And it was just beautiful
Wait, is
energy.
this in Topanga?
This is in Topanga Canyon. And in this tiny room, this is where the two of us lived and we're going to raise our baby. And they were like,
Amazing.
okay, well, this is a nice space to like give birth. Like, this is cool. But like, once your baby starts like crawling and walking,
Right.
you're going to want to move. Right.
Well, I always think that about spaces. Like hospital rooms are super small. When people say like, "Oh, our house is too small for a birth," it's like, so you're gonna go to a tiny, tiny room somewhere else.
Right. Or just be limited to your movement in general.
Yeah.
So, so in preparing for the birth, yes, we had a water tub, and yes, it was relatively short. I think about 6 hours of active full labor.
Nice.
There's more details to it. Like, my water had broken and I wasn't contracting. So I took herbs, I took blue cohosh, black cohosh. I did acupressure. We did spicy foods. I did all this stuff to stimulate labor, get it going. And sure enough, it did. So I didn't actually give birth, I think almost 2 days after my water really broke, but I wasn't in active labor. I would never say I was in 30 hours of labor. It's like, no, my body physically was working for about 6 hours. And that was a very pleasurable birth. I was so grateful that I had the midwife there, but everyone else could have disappeared and that would have been okay. I think just at some point while I was giving birth, I didn't get in the water till the very end, by the way, too. So my labor was very active. It was very like, I felt it. And then as soon as I got in the water, it was like I just melted, right? Like my lower body, just everything opened, and she came out really quickly, totally perfect. Everything felt great. But I was so grateful that she was there to show me, just teach me about more herbs, and how to like really prepare my body and like really coach me emotionally, like the things that truly matter in prenatal care, and then postpartum was incredible for me to just be able to rest and not have to go anywhere and have my midwife come to the house and take care of me and have my friends be there and take care of me and bring me things and teach me about herbs that are going to help my body recover and about like, the fondus and massaging my uterus and skin to skin and all this yummy stuff, right? About birth that we're not always really coached on properly. So I was so grateful she was able to show me this. And I think that was a beautiful birth. I just realized mid birth that I was totally capable of doing it myself. I think I kind of had that realization though, where it was like, wow, the more people that are here, the more it's taking me out of my, out of the depth where I can go, like in the abyss of birth and just in my process in labor, I just felt like this is me and my baby and God, like this is it, this is like this line, this channel going right through. So yeah, I had a really positive experience, but there was a feeling of being a little unsatisfied or something that was lingering for a little while. I didn't have any like birth trauma. There was no birth trauma to like heal or process from. And I was so amped on becoming a doula right after this birth. I was like, I am going to help women have the kind of birth I just had. Like there was such a fire ignited in me that right away I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to study. I'm actually going to like be present for births and I'm going to help women. So I attended my first birth at when my daughter was 6 months old. It was a hospital birth. And they were friends who turned into clients that I knew in LA. And, you know, it was very humbling for me to be in the hospital setting and watch how they do things. And I was so turned off, right? Of just, and I was so grateful for my own experience looking at her like, wow, if they talked to me like that, I would have just lost it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would handle it. So, you know, fast forward to, you know, 5, 6, 7 births later that I had attended. I was studying with my midwife at the time, or she was just kind of like dragging me along to births and was like, you want to learn about birth? Let's go. You know, what she taught me about that I love the most is placenta encapsulation. I got to encapsulate, oh my God, like hundreds of placentas because she had all these clients. And I even did mini drivers. I did her twin placentas. It was like the peak of my career there.
Do you know whose placentas these are?
She had celebrity clientele. You know,
totally. It's LA. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were some exciting moments, but, you know, when I went on to create a business of that of my own and started my own, you know, I did a doula training and just attended births. That's how I got my experience. I read all the books. I watched all the DVDs. I went to birth conferences. So I went to a lot of these and I just soaked it up and I was so passionate about it. Everywhere I went, I couldn't stand just like seeing a pregnant woman and not saying something, you know, I was just on this trip of like, oh, gotta educate everyone. So what ended up happening is that I took a little break from being a doula to get more into my music, right? Because I'm a musician, I write songs and I was starting to perform, you know, while my daughter was maybe 2.5, 3 years old is when I really started writing songs and performing them. And, you know, I was doing really well with that. People were loving it, you know, and they loved that I had this other element to me that was so passionate about birth. And I would integrate this into my music. I would sing
You're basically Erykah Badu.
Basically, except I'm missing one kid. Okay. If I pop out one more baby with a different baby daddy, we are good. Because I have 2 baby daddies right now, but I need one more. But yes, I do practice Baduism. Nice. So I was integrating the birth stuff with the music. I'd go to festivals and I'd play, and then I'd also do a workshop on like sacred birth, you know, and people would love it. They'd come out and we'd talk about natural birth. I'd talk about circumcision. I'd talk about vaccines. I'd talk about all this stuff, like these big topics, right? That people either don't know enough about, or let's just have like a little, you know, educated conversation, debate, roundtable, whatever. So anything to just get these conversations going, because I felt, you know, this is some of the most important stuff when we're talking about like how we bring people into the world, right? So I moved to Ojai a couple years after that, fell in love, and as soon as I got with this man, I could feel the presence of another baby. I already had it in my mind that I was going to have an unassisted birth. I already knew that I was going to give birth either like on my own with my partner. I didn't know if it was going to be in nature, if it was going to be in a home. Like I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew that this time around, that's something that was important to me.
So tell me a little bit about that shift of, because you had the positive home birth experience with the midwife, and then the midwife takes you under her wing and you really get to know her. Can you speak to that? Like why you wouldn't have wanted her there versus this like call to do it on your own? Or?
Well, I think it was because my original vision of doing it on my own, because I felt capable. I feel she was there to specifically teach me certain things about how to be a better birth attendant, how to really show up for women, you know, and I was an aspiring midwife for a few years. I was like, I want to go through my training and be a midwife, but it was just nearly impossible with my circumstances as a Canadian, and just with having the young child and not being certain I wanted to even live in LA. There were certain elements. So, I did work with her a little bit. My second pregnancy, I got my blood work with her. We did a little check-in, but I told her, and she even knew that I wanted an unassisted birth. I had expressed that in our first consultation. So she knew that I was out to have, an independent experience.
Mm-hmm.
And she supported that, but she also wanted to support me getting like formal training, to really know what the risks are and to really be educated about it in case something does go wrong. I know she was very firm about that with me. And and I was just still a little bit young and rebellious, but by the time my second pregnancy came around, I had just I mellowed out a little bit, I had just been to more births. So I just feel like it humbled me. I got to see different circumstances, different outcomes. Sometimes the birth didn't go as planned. And the truth is what was happening while I was making this transition, going from having this home birth into planning this unassisted birth for myself, even though I wasn't pregnant yet, I just had it in my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was happening is that women who wanted unassisted births were finding me. They were finding me and they're like, we heard that you support women to give birth on their own, It was kind
So
of like,
had you been attending births without midwives?
yes. And
Nice.
I was developing a reputation and not a good one for quite a while, for a few years, even my own midwife. And I will say that my midwife, the doula, was kind of like, why are you telling women it's okay to give birth by themselves? We supported you. Your birth was perfect. Like, why would you have anything to complain about? And I'm like, that's not my approach. It's just more
right. Miss it more, you guys.
Yeah, well, I think the point was that they felt I was taking attention away from the importance of women having a midwife. And I was telling them, no, I fully support midwifery. I've wanted to be a midwife.
Yeah.
But I would like to be more of a spiritual midwife, like Janine Parvati Baker, who I feel was the pioneer, who even came out with spiritual midwifery term before Ina May even wrote her book. So she was a woman whose books I read and went, wow, this is how I'm going to do it. Like, this woman is so highly in tune and so intuitive and knows exactly what she's doing. It was like, that to me just felt so aligned. And so when, I just tried to, be clear that I was here to support whatever a woman wanted to do.
Right. Totally.
I didn't feel I was capable of continuing supporting women only in the hospitals or birth centers, but I had a lot to offer as a birth attendant, being at home births where there was no midwife, because, even though I didn't have technical, emergency related tools to be able to handle, medical situations, I was a great support and presence. I was very strong, grounded, and women appreciated that, but there were moments where I didn't know how to handle certain situations. And it's sad when we need to transport and we need to, go through all this energy. It's a big energy to go and transfer from home to hospital. I've been at births where it's been either, delayed placenta wouldn't come out for a really long time. And here I am, like, really trusting. And I'm calling midwives all around the country, just like, how long's the longest you've ever seen? Like, what do you feel like, should I tug on it? Just things like that. And thank God they've been there to support. But these are moments where I'm like, wow, I wish I had more training to know. And I don't have to go around asking. So I started to feel the need to step back from birth a little bit because I felt I needed more training before, and I'm also liable legally if something were to happen and they mention I'm there. And I started to see things come up like that. So I took a step back from births for a minute, and then, it found me again and again. And every time was just like, do I do this? Cause I never accepted money either. Never accepted money, except there was like 2 times that came up. And that's when I got in trouble, where midwives found out and they called me out. So, and this wasn't until after my unassisted birth. So I'll get there. So when I was just newly pregnant with my second child, I remember communicating with her with the spirit, and being like, okay, listen, I want to have this unassisted birth. Okay. I want to do this by myself. Like, it's just us. Like, if you don't want to be here, if you don't want to go through with that, like, you can leave. I remember just like kind of putting it on the table. Like, I'm going to do this like the real, like, mammalian way. If you don't want to do this, you can leave. Like, it's okay. So I kind of put it out there, and I felt this child's will and was like, no, this is why this baby came to me. Like, the will is already there. I got pregnant really quickly after meeting this man. Also 3 months we were dating. So I went from 3 weeks to 3 months of not knowing my partners. So in love in creating a baby. And that's how we got to know each other. And I just had a will both times of like, this is how I'm going to do it. He was all on board. He was super young. He was 19 years old. I was 26, still legally married and had a child. We didn't know where we were going to give birth. We didn't know what that was going to look like, but his parents own land here. And we had thought about it. What if we could convince them for us to live on this property? They were not okay with the home birth idea at first. They were just, they didn't know what to do. What if something goes wrong? We don't even know if we want you living here. It's a big property, so it wasn't going to be an issue, but they also felt liable. Well, they, at around 6 months, they agreed, and we started building a yurt on their property, and that would be my birthing space. So that pregnancy was a little bit difficult in the beginning, actually. As far as just feeling like I maybe got pregnant too soon, those feelings of guilt came up of like, wow, I'm older than him. What am I doing? Like, am I just having another baby too soon? Like, is this the right thing? They're judging me. I felt judged by them. Like they don't like me. There was just a lot of my own personal stuff going on, but I was still just so set on like building the bond with this baby and just doing it our way, even if we had to like move and be somewhere else. Like I still felt this immense like trust that everything was going to be okay. So yeah, the only prenatal care I had was going to my midwife for my first birth, getting my blood work. Everything was great. Never had any real severe issues during pregnancy other than, a lot of nausea and vomiting, which went away as soon as we told his parents, right? I was sick every single day. It was emotional. It was like emotional sickness every single day. And I was starting having dreams about it. I was starting having nightmares about telling them.
Oh my God.
What is this guilt, this immense guilt about like us admitting that we're pregnant, because I just was going to burst their bubble. Mom was like just retiring. It was like, oh, I'm going to have all this freedom. And we're like, uh-oh, you're going to be grandma. So we just spent, the pregnancy just bonding, and I read a lot. Again, I read a lot more books. We watched all the films. He got himself educated. He was very present, very supportive. And then we started building this yurt. And we got it built in maybe like a month and a half, moved in only a few weeks before I gave birth. So we did not have a stove even set up. And I was giving birth in December.
Oh, dear.
Now we're in Southern California, so it's not, it's not as bad as it could be other places. But he built us this beautiful bathtub outside that had a fire underneath it. And it was like, oh, that's going to be my birthing tub, this or that. Well, the water didn't even heat up in time. So so I never did any childbirth classes. I never did any tools or techniques or anything like that. I just really surrendered really well in both of my births, I think. Just was so present and so focused. And I didn't really, the prep for me was like making sure I'm doing all of my teas and herbs, reading the right stuff, journaling enough, being honest with myself about like what I'm actually scared of. Like I journaled a lot. I had to journal with myself to talk myself through it, right? Like, what are you actually afraid of? What's coming up this birth versus the last one? Like, am I really, what are the possible outcomes that really scare me about doing it by myself? And so I think journaling really helped me, and he helped me. Just like we got to talk together, and he got to just say like, well, if this happens, let's do this. So what we did do is that we obviously had a car ready. We were, maybe 30 minutes away from a hospital. So I wasn't really worried about that. And we did invite his closest friend and my best friend to both be on the land. And he was tending fire and she was in our outdoor kitchen. So in separate spaces outside of our birthing space. So we did have two other attendants, people on the property, but not in the space with us. So what ended up happening was that it was Christmas and we were at a beautiful Christmas party, and everyone was being so loving and so just, warm and welcoming, like, we love you, baby. And like, we're so ready for you. And so, and I'm getting all this love and everybody's rubbing my belly, and I'm just starting to feel a little tripped out, right? Like I'm starting to feel this like psychedelic feeling that we talk about in spiritual midwifery, this like, whoa, like I'm feeling really lightheaded and really warm and fuzzy. And I could feel the beginning of labor starting. And then by the time we got in the car to leave the party, I felt my first contraction and was like, oh, there it is. I was like, all that love and welcoming, like baby felt that. That was real. And so we put on some soothing music and here I go. I'm feeling them. I'm like, wow, they're coming on strong and fast. It was a 15-minute car ride, but the whole way I was like, okay, they haven't stopped. We get home and I'm like, let's prepare. He starts the bathtub, he lights the fire under the bathtub outside. I get into warm stuff. We have a little tiny space heater because we don't even have the stove set up, right? I get into like some warm stuff and I'm like, I'm going to go to the bathroom because we need to sleep. Like if my labor is starting, I need to rest right now. I go to we have a compost toilet outside and all of a sudden I feel this like big glob come out and I shine the light and I can see that it's the mucus plug. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Okay. Well, I better really sleep. Like this is happening. I lay down in bed and I just feel all this warm water just in the bed. And I'm like, fuck. And it's cold, right? And I'm just like, God dang it. So I get out of bed.
And are you off grid down in the yurt?
Yes.
So you're on a generator with the space heater?
No, we have electricity coming from another part of the property.
Okay.
But there are solar panels on the property. We do not have computer. We do not have, we have one working cell phone, but no smartphone. This was, a little bit more rustic. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, but without the heat. Oh, and we have no lights in the yurt.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
No, candles. We had candles. So we lit the 2 candles and we have the space heater. And I think that's it. I think that's all we kind of had going on. So I get out of bed and at this point it's maybe 1 a.m. We probably left the party at 11. Yeah, it's probably like 12:31. And then I labor for, I can't even tell how long it is, but it's fast. Okay. These contractions or rushes are coming on so quickly and so hard, much harder than my first. And I thought, what is this? And it was like, something came to me and it was like, your body already knows what to do. So it's doing it. It's acclimating a lot faster. And I just thought, okay, just surrender to it. I'm taking homeopathics to try to stop it. Just like slow this down. He's like, what remedy? He's trying to like fiddle in the dark, looking for the different homeopathics. I'm like, whatever.
We're basically either like make it go faster or slow it down
to get it over with, or right. So he's fiddling, looking for any remedies that help slow down labor or bring more mild contractions. So he's giving me these. I don't feel a difference. All I'm doing is drinking coconut water. There's a bowl. I'm like pooping in the bowl. He's like cleaning up after me. And I feel myself get to transition where I just like throw up a little bit and I just feel my body go through it. And I'm like, wow, here she comes. And he's just like, here she comes. Well, we didn't say that because we didn't know it was a girl yet. So it was just like, here's the baby. Baby's coming. So this is at 2:00 in the morning. So labor started around 11. So we've got a 3-hour labor there. And it felt so quickly to me. But when you're in labor and you're just in it, you have no concept of time. So I'm not even aware it's been 3 hours, but I can just tell. I can feel the difference of like, whoa, this baby has a strong will and is coming fast. So yeah, I was just like covered with like this cashmere robe. I'm on all fours and I'm on the yurt floor and I'm on like a little sheepskin rug and we just have the bowl there. He cleaned it out after I pooped and we were going to use that for the placenta. And then I gave birth on all fours. He caught her like right before she hit the floor, pretty much. I dropped some blood too on the floor. Like the stain was there for a really long time.
Aww,
sweet, right? We'd always love that.
Like,
that's so sweet. So we, so that happened. And then when her first little cry came, it's like our 2 friends who were outside, they could just feel that, right?
Aww.
They just knew, they could just hear the little cry. And then,
so were the friends at the Christmas party? How did they got there so fast?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, my girlfriend was the one hosting the
Oh,
party.
well, that's amazing.
So
Okay.
she knew. And when I
Nice.
was leaving, I was like, just so you know,
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. And
I
she's like,
just got all juiced up on oxytocin and this
yeah.
baby might come.
Yeah. So she was like, I'm here. You just
Nice.
tell me. And then she checked in with me when I was at the yurt and was like, how's it feeling? I was like, I think it's happening. So if you could like come down here. And she was making teas in the kitchen. She was cleaning up. She was making food like sweet potatoes and soup and all this. And then his friend was out just holding space, tending the fire. He made a beautiful fire outside and was just praying and was just holding the space. So it was beautiful to have that male female presence there, just both outside and yeah, and then after that, I think I just got into bed and just rested a lot, and she just brought me yummy things, and by the next day we had just a couple visitors bring us nice things, and my healing was very smooth both times, actually. I think I tore a little bit my first birth, and funny enough, she was a smaller baby. And then my second birth, outside of the water, bigger baby, didn't even tear. Something I'll say is I think it had to do with, because our yoni, our vagina is like this opening. And it has the ability to open and close based on how we feel emotionally, especially when we're feeling really loved, when we're feeling scared, when we're feeling trauma, when we're feeling PTSD, whatever it is. And I did not have as much of a loving, sacred sexual relationship with my first partner. And it took me 6 months to even want to, make love after the birth. 10 days after I gave birth to my second daughter, we were making love, just because it was like the love was juicy and I was just so in my power. I was so happy and like that I did it. It was just like that feeling of like, wow, I did this. I knew I would. Like it just satisfied this place in me, feeling like I finally did it. Like I can walk my talk now, because I believe so much in the power of undisturbed birth. I had to experience it for myself.
Yeah.
To know that I could be an inspiration to other women to know, hey, you can have this kind of experience too, So that was really important to me to know that I had gone through that rite of passage myself before I could really support and encourage other women. It meant a lot to me. So yeah, healing was great. We named her Munaya, and she just turned 8. It's so trippy. My oldest is 13. Her name is Amma. And she was born in the pyramid house in water, midwife, second birth, Munaya, in the yurt, unassisted, free birth, primal.
Hell yeah. And do you still attend birth?
I haven't attended a birth probably in 2.5 years. And the last birth I attended was not intended to be a birth I was going to be at. It was just a woman in our town who was not sure what she was going to do, and I felt compassion. I felt a little sorry for her that she didn't have a partner and she didn't know what she was going to do, and finally got herself in this little house. And I just remember she was like, I just feel like I need you at the birth. And I thought, okay, I'm putting myself in a liable position again if I show up, but okay. And then one day she tells a friend of ours, oh, I think I'm in labor. She'd already said that 3 times. So we were like, okay. And I go over and she's really in labor and the baby comes out 10 minutes after I get there. So I caught that baby and that was the last birth I'd been to. I thought, I'm just going to end on a good note here. Like, I'm going to catch this baby, help her postpartum, and then just be done for a little while. But yeah, that was the last one. I think because a couple births before that, it was a friend of mine's birth and she had a total free birth outside. I'm happy to forward her contact too if you want. Outside outdoor birth way up in this canyon here in Ojai, and needed to be transferred the day after for a blood transfusion. And he was, so there were some, but there were red flags also, that she was anemic, things that she could have done a little bit better. And I think that's what's important about our experience is that if we look at it and we didn't have the outcome that we hoped for, or things didn't go as planned, if we just look at like how we could have taken better steps, to either plan or prepare, or things that we would now educate young women or women who don't know, to say, hey, that was my experience and this I would really recommend. Like she did not get her blood work done. And that's something I always recommend to women, especially if they're planning for an unassisted birth. I say you have to be your own midwife then. When you're planning for a free birth, you're stepping in as your own midwife and you're going to look to yourself for what to do, So what is this how you would tell another woman, how to go about her birth if you were in that position? So I just tried to make all the right steps to, educate her and say, get your blood work done. It'll tell you a lot about it. She never did it. She was anemic, lost a lot of blood, needed the transfusion. Fast forward, I got a bad reputation for that birth too, because I was the only one there that was actually very experienced with birth, and even I didn't know what to do. It was like, I don't know what is wrong. Like I cannot tell what is wrong and why she's like, why this is going on, why the baby has this cough. Like I couldn't. That's not my job, and so I realized like I could be better as a birth coach. I love educating women, telling them about my birth stories, directing them to the right books and films and teachers and workshops or whatnot, but actually going and attending births, even though it's so beautiful and I love being part of the experience, I don't think I need to keep doing that, as part of my life's work. I would rather just get the training and just be a midwife. But I have my stuff about that too. There was a way for me to not have to go and get the credentials just to be able to like work with women in a legal good way, then I would do that.
I feel you. I love just the imagery of it being Christmas night with the candles and the speeder and the sheepskin and just the rawness. And I feel like I could totally see it. And of course the bathtub never got.
No, it was like nothing in me wanted to get up in that
totally
process because it was so fast, Nothing in me wanted to just get up and go get in water. It was like I was doing just fine. I was fine,
The
and if
floor was your friend.
Yeah, I could have slowed down labor as it does sometimes, I just, nothing in me wanted to do that. It was an earth birth, right? I had a birth and I was having an earth birth. And funny enough, my vision after this birth, it was like, okay, it was, so remember like my brain after the first birth was like, I need to support women during birth to make sure they have a birth like this. After my unassisted birth, I was like, I'm never letting a woman go to the hospital again. It was like, my mind was just so like, do not ever let a woman go give birth in the hospital who could have this caliber of experience. Like, no way. Like, this is why you're here,
It's painful.
I know, got to prevent it, so I don't think that way now. I've let go a lot on telling women what I think is right for them. And
we don't know.
Right. And I let all the women who find me.
Right. And your story is the medicine for the right people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's just so interesting.
According to design too. I was like, I want to test myself to see if my design is actually perfect. Like, does my body actually know what to do without anybody telling me what to do or coming and intervening with the natural process? Because I know for a fact that animals do not like it when you intervene at birth, right? Like, it's so basic, so I'm really, I know that the women that need to find me do, and I just have so much more experience now that I can look at it all and go, okay, maybe it is not for everyone, but I'm going to tell you at least like what you're capable of, like with where you are in your mentality. It takes a lot of work, even mentally, to get to that place.
And you're just as capable of sabotaging yourself as you are of living in your power and claiming your birth, right? Like it's all within us, right? Whichever it is, we're capable of accepting crumbs and being grateful for the C-section we didn't need, just as capable of birthing at home in our power and, and claiming that and shouting it from the rooftops. Like it's all within us. And yeah, I agree. There's definitely, I think for me, shifting out of thinking I know what's right for anyone else has really helped me genuinely midwife women to help them transmute their trauma into power. And what I find pretty regularly is that women will use their shitty hospital trauma story as the point of never again.
Yeah.
And while my greatest prayer is that, we can experience a world where we don't have to first be traumatized to, to live in our power, that would really probably be ideal. But at the same time, what the fuck do I know? And whatever it takes to wake us up and reclaim matriarchy and recenter ourselves as the most important, people in our family, because we're the energy calibrators and the creators. And but anyway, so I feel you.
My biggest fear about giving birth the first time was not being able to breastfeed because I wasn't breastfed as a baby, right? And I had a really hard time with my mother and our relationship growing up. And I think the bond was something was severed, something happened, and we just never really bonded. And I thought, well, there's that, here's a big example of like why that could have gotten in the way, with like
Yeah.
being breastfed, being put in my own crib, and never being able to like sleep with my parents. It's so sad.
So
It's
sad.
so normal though. It was so normal to do this. And this is where like the whole SIDS movement came from too, of like all these babies are just dying without an explanation. It's like, maybe because like in their
They're alone in a
completely
box.
abandoned. They're like being abandoned, and they just go into shock, and they're like, well, I guess
I'm not safe.
leave, right? Yeah. So that was my biggest fear, because I felt that was what was going to make me like a great mother. I thought if I could just do what my mom never did, because my mom had a natural vaginal birth with me. I think she had an epidural with my brother afterward. But, I loved that. I loved knowing that my mom had a natural vaginal birth. It made it feel like, okay, because a lot of women hear their mother's birth stories and their grandmother's birth stories. And it's like, oh my God, I'm susceptible to this as well. Especially if it was very traumatic, very
Totally.
long. And, the whole you almost died or I almost died at birth, which is so common, so common that we're told that.
That was something I really thought a lot about, was I want my daughter to know that she got born, like that she birthed herself.
Yeah, I tell mine the same. I'm just like, you did that. I just surrendered. I just breathed.
I just held on for dear life.
I just did breaths. That's all. You made your way. You pushed yourself down. You found your way. You knew exactly what to do. And I always tell women that too. It's so basic. I'm like, our bodies are designed to do this. Just if you don't trust in that, you're in trouble,
Yeah, well, that's where we are. But that's why we have podcasts like this, and that's why we have women like you telling your story.
Oh, I'll tell it all the time.
So, before we close, because you are such an incredible musician that I have come to enjoy so much, can you please share with everybody how they can find your music and enjoy what your offerings are in the world?
Well, so I go by Shylah Ray, but when you're going to look me up online, you want to look up Shylah Ray Sunshine. You'll get a lot more. You'll get the direct link to my Spotify and to my website, because it is ShylahRaySunshine.com, and under Spotify, it's Shylah Ray Sunshine. And then I have, I have an EP and an album available there, and then other collaborations. I've done even a couple different podcasts that I think are on Spotify, which are great. And I think one of them is called Blood, Breasts, Birth, and something else. I don't know. Just all the like belly, birth. I don't know. I just used to come up with little cute titles like that of all the things that I loved and I'm passionate about. So there's a couple of those available. And and then shout out to Janine Parvati Baker, who is
always,
God, who just wrote the most incredible book. So those are my recommendations.
What's your favorite book of hers?
Prenatal Yoga, Natural Birth. By far, first edition, just because it was so, I don't know, it was just so, even just like the cover of it, everything, it's just my favorite book. And I gotta
revisit
her birth stories. She has 4 birth stories in there because she has 5 children. She had 4 births and then 1 twin birth. And the twin birth is what made her a midwife, because she just used her own intuition, literally walked out of the hospital and went home and gave birth to her twins because they wouldn't allow her older daughter to be present in the room. So great, right? She's just like, it was so important to me. It was the most important thing to me about the birth that she be there. And she's a friend of mine now, this woman, Loy. So she her books, I think Prenatal Yoga, Natural Childbirth is my favorite. The other ones are like a little bit too big and long. There's like a lot of information in there, but this one gets straight to the point. And then what else did I read? God, there were so many other books, and I'm not so much in the birth world anymore, like I said. So it's been about music, and I really appreciate when people have both, where we have women who are, even if we give Erykah Badu as an example, where she's a mother, she's also an aspiring, midwife, and she's a doula and this incredible musician, so she's got all these elements, and I love this.
That's women.
Yeah. And I love to see when women are passionate about more than one thing and like where they're involved, we take our life experience, such as our birth experiences, and we're still inspiring others, especially when I see celebrities doing this, where they're talking about their home births and they're breastfeeding openly in photos and they're hashtagging the right things and they're all about the free the nipple movement. Like, I just love this. I love seeing that we're normalizing this kind of stuff. I don't know what it's going to take to really normalize like free birth and unassisted birth. It's happening, but it's very kind of like, it still feels a little underground. It still feels a little like, you can only talk about it some places and certain times, but
and it super helps to not give a fuck, which I've found the more I've embodied that, which I do pretty well, there isn't anywhere where it's not welcome because I'm dictating the space, so I am a good example of someone who I never once received any negative energy when I was pregnant around my free birth. I wasn't like, I didn't hold it close to my chest, but I also would never tolerate anyone like questioning my authority about myself. That's like, that's such a mind-boggling, like off the table idea to me.
Yeah.
But because of that, of course, you attract what you believe about yourself and what you create. So
definitely, I saw the difference in mine. Nobody questioned me on my second, but on my first, where I wasn't 100%.
Yeah,
I had those different people like, aren't you concerned? Aren't you worried about being in the canyon? You're far from the hospital.
So rude.
Things like that, where it started to get to me a little bit. I noticed with second birth, nothing could get to me. So I know that it is a practice mindset. It really is a daily practice.
And you birth how you live. It's not like a compartmentalized, like how it's sold to us that you like go away with strangers in this small room and then it's like happens and then you come back to your life. That's what a fucking lie, and what a bad way to set women up into motherhood. It's such an integrated, deeply, deeply relevant, aspect of who we are. And so we birth how we live, we die how we live. So if you are a rule follower that doesn't want to, make any waves and don't know how to stand up for yourself and have a real struggle with your voice and are deeply afraid of what people think and need a lot of validation and well, you're set up for a certain experience, and that's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just set up for a certain experience, And the thing with the what were you going to say about, you said about free birth like getting normalized. I think that at the end of the day, free birth is just birth, and it's not all ways of birthing. Free birth is the original birth. It's mammalian undisturbed birth. And we have to call it this, little label now because it's been so completely co-opted and bastardized by patriarchy. And so that's where we are. And it's interesting though, because in my world, free birth is completely normalized. It's a completely normal thing. And so that to me is where we start. And people, ask me this all the time. How does free birth become normalized? And it's like, but it is normalized for me. Is it normalized for you? Like you don't normalize it by waiting for someone else to fucking do it. Just if it's normal for you, it's become normalized, and just move on with your life and integrate that. It doesn't, it's not like we don't have to have it be this like big movement. It's just like, how are you walking in your life and what feels normal to you? But anyway, okay, we got to wrap up. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to share your story with the world. It's an amazing one.
So have a great day. Okay, bye.
Stepping out of righteousness, recognizing oneness, no separation of you and I, of that of this. We are playing one game, everyone wins the same. I allow all things to exist today. I allow all things to exist in their own way. I exist in my own way, and I am a powerful creatress living in the matrix, source of all wisdom in this bliss queendom. We will all
That's it for today, everyone. Join us next week for another episode of the Free Birth Podcast. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your body, your choice. Lots of love.